Hi there. This is going to be a tutorial to show how to take your first image and make an ad out of that first image in Photoshop for the simple purpose of a slap comp. You know that the finished design would be done in Adobe InDesign, but we are going to make a quick slap comp retaining the text that I have here and the headline as vector. Okay, so in the PDF it's going to be vector, but I wanted you to see how in the first ad series I have the necessary elements: a headline, an image of course, body text over here to the left, and I have a logo. So my group project folder, should contain everything that this ad is going to have. So what I want to do is minimize Photoshop for a second. So let me just hit the F key to go like this a couple of times and minimize Photoshop for a second and show you that I use displacement maps in my project folder, or in my ad. So I'm going to have a displacement map folder inside my project folder. I also have the fonts that I used. Now I have all these fonts because I got the ATC fonts off the server. But if this is a machine that isn't in the lab, and you mean a PC or a Mac, and you're going to want to bring your font with you no matter where you go, so that if you're at the printers or an agency, you actually have the font. The font I used, as I said, was ATC Tradewinds, which is right down here and here. So I use Tradewinds for mine. So I'm going to deposit those. If this were a PC, I could right-hand click on that and install the font. If it's a Mac, you have to install it in the user library. I'm going to double-click the Macintosh hard drive and bring it over here and show you there's a library which you're not supposed to go into. I want to show you where the user library is. So even though it won't show up right now, inside my home account folder, I have a library as well. It's a user library. So I can make changes to this library. Now in this library, as I go into it, you can see that I have a fonts folder. Now in the new Mac, at the certain computers, if I go backwards to my home account folder, library here doesn't even show up. So I want you to see how to make this show up. So let me go back to the hard drive and just say, okay, now where's my library? So what I'm going to do is hold the Alt or Option key, and I'm going to go to the Go menu, and you can see here how the library shows up if you hold the Option key down. Okay, so holding the Alt or Option key, I'm going to let go on that library, and then I can open my User Fonts folder. Now all I would have to do to install those prior to opening up Photoshop, if I had done my ad at home, then I would need these fonts in this folder to your left. So I'm going to click and hit Command A to select all, and then I would just drag them in there. Okay, that is actually a necessary function of you beginning this file. Okay, if you are beginning at home. If you're at school, get the font off of the computer libraries at school or wherever you are working from. Make sure, and now I have to go back to my I'll have to navigate to my, you have to be patient here. I'm going to navigate to my project folder, which of course is very, very deep inside this whole computer. So let me double click that again. Let's go to the design one. Let's go to the design demo. Okay, and in design demo I have the GoPro demo. So in the GoPro demo are all my material. I also put in, and I'll make it available on the server, but you can just stop the movie. I actually have this PDF which shows you what I want you to do first once you open up your image. Okay, so I'm going to refer back to this in a minute. Okay, so first I want to show you that I'm doing an ad that uses this Hurley logo. I want you to make sure you get an EPS, a PNG, or the actual AI Adobe Illustrator file of your logo. So I'm going to bring over this and I'm going to type in Hurley logo. And I'm just going to hit the return key. And now I'm going to go to images. And in images, I see that I want to set my tools here at a size of, I want to go larger than 1024. So I want to find the Hurley logo, which is right here. That's the one I got. So I right-hand click, or I clicked it, then I viewed the image, then I saved this image to my folder. Okay, so I'll put that on the other screen. So you can just right-hand click and save the image. Okay, so I'm going to put it on the other screen. Now, over here is the PNG file. So I'm going to make sure that that's opened in Photoshop as well. Okay, so I'm going to hit the F button to expand this to full screen, and I have all the stuff open on my computer that I need, and I'll just tell you I'm hitting Command tilde so I can go ahead to the finished ad, which of course you haven't even started your ad yet, and I'm going to make sure that I take the liquid power and the body copy from a text file. So I want to make sure that I've retyped this into a text file, which should be on my machine right. I opened it up and now I don't know where it is. Okay, I'll just open it up again. So let me go to here. Oh, you know what? I hit new. I didn't mean to hit new. So let's go to open recent GoPro text. Okay, so there's my text. So I wanted to use liquid power, so I typed it in a text file. I then typed in my headline, my body text, and I'm going to make sure there's no extra spaces. Look at how I had to take the extra space out of here, and I'm going to go like this and make sure that this is actually perfect text. I just closed the attributes window. So look at how this is perfect text. Look at how there are no forced returns in this text. Now, I'm not going to take it from an RTF file. I'm actually going to format this to plain text, because when I bring it into Photoshop, I don't want it formatted with any font. I want to format the font, so I'm going to say OK. If you can make a text file like I just did, that would be really good. Okay, but I don't want to destroy this original one, so I'm going to save it now, of course, and I have, or should have, in my folder here not only an RTF file, but I should have a you know what, it didn't save the RTF file. Let me see if I can Command Z back. It's okay, I can actually go like this and hit Command C, go to a new file, and I do want to have both. So I want to take, and I'll hit Command A to select all, Command T. I shouldn't have done what I did. It's okay that I did that. That's okay. Now I have this back. I'm going to save this as my GoPro, but the RTF version of it. Okay, so that's cool. Now I'll close this. Okay, so I'm going to leave this open or put it on my other screen because that's what I'm going to use. So let us now go to your first part of this assignment. So the first part of the assignment is, once you know you have your fonts, once you know you have written your body copy, once you know you have your main image, and once you have your logo art, whatever you have to do to get your logo art, even if you have to redraw it in Adobe Illustrator, you have all four elements that you need. So let's go to Command tilde, Brian, so we can go right to our basic image. Now, what I want to do is open up again, which I should have put on that screen. I want to just click this and open up the resolution PDF. So it says, and you can pause the screen right now if you want to, you can open your first JPEG in Photoshop. Immediately save as to the name of your file, okay? And make it a PSD file, which I'll do because it's a JPEG. And then crop your new PSD file if necessary, okay? And I always say a bit larger than you need. Now, when you're in Photoshop, go to Image and Image Size. Make the longest dimension of your choice. Oh, that should have been, I have a mistake there. This should have been indented. I thought I did indent it. So make the longest dimension 12 inches. Make the resolution PPI 300. So let's do all of that, and I'll put this on the other screen. So I'm going to click over here back to Photoshop. It says the very first thing to do is to save as to a PSD file. So I will save as and change it to a PSD file so I don't damage the original. And I'll say this is Brian Sorial underscore ad 1 for my first ad series, underscore 1 for the first ad of the first ad series. So I'm going to say OK, save. Now it says go to crop the image. Well, I want to use the image in its entirety. Okay, I'll let a little bit of bleed occur, but if you wanted to crop your image, then now is the time. I won't crop it, but what if you only wanted to have a thin image? What if this was the image you actually wanted to use right there? Okay, and maybe even show it a little bit more like this. All right, so if that's the case, then go ahead. Crop your image. I messed up the top. Crop your image the way that you want, and then go to image and image size and make the dimension 12 inches. But I'm going to right hand click and I'm going to cancel the crop because I like how it is. So now it says go to image and image size. Make the longest dimension that is there, which is in my case the width. Just make it 12 inches. Make sure this is on not pixels because you don't want 12 pixels. You want 12 inches. And then make the resolution immediately 300. For the purposes of a slap comp, you can change resolution. No one cares. But for the purpose of sending this job to a printer or an image setter or a professional marketing firm or an ad agency, if this is how you're going to submit the file, you must start with a 300 ppi picture. So you have to ask the client or ask your art director or ask the agency or not demand, but that the most important part of this job is to start out with a great resolution image. For the purposes of a slap comp, this is fine. For the purposes of a finished ad, this is not. Okay, but I'm going to click OK because it's a slap comp that we're creating. So now I have my image. You can see on top that I have the image cut to, or cropped, or I'm sorry, image size to 12 inches. All right, at 300 ppi. So now I'm going to show you what my thumbnail, let's consider that what I'm going to right now is a thumbnail only. Okay, so now I know I want this neato rectangle with a displacement map. I want to back off on the background picture, and I actually want to add a little gradient, a foreground to transparent mask on it. Then I want left-hand flush text to be the same margin. Let me hit the move tool. Look at how, and I'll drag out a guide. Look at how that is the same margin. Look at how I'm drawing down from the L and the P on liquid power down to the take control of the water. Okay, I'll Command Z back the guide. Now, look at how I have my nice little rectangle, which only is a 3-edged rectangle in the white line that comes across. And I have custom kind of controlled where the D and the R rag around his head. So let's now make this ad happen. So let's go to Command tilde Brian to go to the ad. Now I am going to double click this layer to make it a layer. So now it is actually a layer. I'll name an original. So I don't ever damage it. I'm going to duplicate it. And then I'm going to lock the bottom one. Okay, so the very first thing I'm going to do now is put a white layer underneath everything and fill it with white. Well, the background color is white. So I'm going to hit Command Delete. So you see I now have a white background behind it. So now I'm going to take my rectangle and I'm going to take this and I'm going to draw a rectangle to any size. That's not a rectangle, Brian. That is a ellipse. So now I'm going to draw a rectangle to any size that I feel really works with this ad. Okay, so there is a drawing mechanism. If I don't like my selection, I can always go to transform the selection, and you can see how I can make it slightly taller, to not crop off his hair. I can make it slightly higher here to have more room. I actually want to go to the bottom of his shirt because I want to show you a couple of ways to do the text. I would like to show on this movie right-hand flush text on this side. I'd like to show the left-hand flush text, and then I want to rag the text around his shoulder. So I want all three as, I mean, I'll turn off their layers and I'll only keep the one that's down here, but I want you to have a quick movie of how that's done. So I'm going to hit the return key and accept the transformation. Okay. Now, if I click over to this original copy layer, I can hit Command or Control J to make myself that thing right there. Now, what I want to do is I want to only displace a little bit of this edge. So I'm going to make a large rectangle only exposing about a ½ inch of the picture on this layer. Okay, I'll call this my displaced layer. Okay, and of course now I'm going to save the file. And I'm going to triple check the name. I know I can go down here and you can see how it's called Brian Sorial _add1_1.psd. So now I want to displace this. So how do I displace it? I go to Filter, Distort, and Displace. And I locate, I'm going to go 30 and 30 this time. That might be too much, but I'm going to leave it at 30 and 30. Now it says, Brian, what do you want to displace? Well, it goes to my folder. If it didn't, I would direct this to go to my folder. Here is my displacement maps, and I'm going to use cracked and peeled old paint. I'm going to use that to displace the edge, and I'm going to click OK. Now, that it was way too much, so I'm going to Command Z back, go back to the displacement, and I'll probably only do it 15 and 15. So I'll go 15, tabbing to 15. Oops, that's not 15, that's 145. That would look weird. And now let's do the same thing, cracked and peeled paint, and I like that displacement a lot better. I don't like how it's left over on the bottom, so I'm going to remove that right now, not on a layer mask, I'm just going to remove it. Okay, so I'm going to deselect this, and I'm going to make a little rectangle right up to here, and I'm going to take that and make sure it's right on that line. Look at how my marquee is a little bit higher. So I go to Transform, Selection, and I can take that and just move it down right to here. Boom. Now, I'm going to just hit the delete key because I've deleted out that part of it. I think that looks cleaner. Okay. Now, one thing that I didn't do, and it's a mistake, so I am going to Command Z back. Do you see how the displacement was too fast right here of a change? It looks funny. So I did make a mistake, and I'm glad I did on screen. So I'm going to Command Z back until there is no displacement. You got it? Okay, so I Command Z once, then Option or Alt Command or Control Z until there is no more displacement. So I just keep on going there. What I forgot to do when I drew this rectangle was to add a feather to it. And I want the feather to be quite significant. So I'm going to go 25 or even 30 pixels on the feather. Now I'm going to displace it. So I go to Filter, Distort, Displace for the third time. Actually 10 and 10 would be fine with me. And now I'm going to displace it. And it says with what again? I say cracked and peeled old paint, and I like that much better. Now again, I want to hit Command D and show you that the definition between the displacement and the real is softer because I feathered it. Okay, so again what I want to do is draw a box. Let me zoom into this. Draw a box and let it snap right to this edge and hit delete. Then I want to go do the same thing to the top so it's not so yucky on the top. And let's go grab it right here and let it go right there and just hit delete. I just think that looks cleaner. Okay, now I want to deselect and add a drop shadow to that. So I hit Command S to save the file. Try to remember what I'm going to tell you. If you're happy with what you've done, after every 3 saves, go to Edit, Purge, All. After every 3 saves. Okay, I'll keep on telling you that. Don't worry about that. Just let it do its thing. Okay, now Photoshop's going to run faster. So if you ever notice Photoshop slowing down, now it'll speed back up because we've restored the cache in Photoshop. So now with that layer selected, let me go to the effects and the drop shadow. I'm going to move the drop shadow window over so I can at least see the drop shadow on the screen. Let me move this down so I can see it well and move the paragraph palette over. Okay, let me just move it over like that. And then I want this to be distanced out a little bit more, but I want the light source from 11 o'clock. There. Now I want to distance it out a little bit farther. I want to make sure it's a dark blue, not a dark red. So I'm going to click this and go to a dark, over here was a neutral color. I want a dark blue, black over here. Fine. Now I'm going to size it out, which means to feather it out a little bit more. Okay, and that looks good to me. And it's 75% on the opacity of that, and I'm good to go. Okay, now let us go back and turn on the main image. All right, what I want to do is back off of this main image. Remember, I have a white background underneath it. Okay, so I'm going to just lower the opacity until that's backed off just a little bit to give myself a dimensional feel. Now, I don't want to get rid of the sky on the top. I just want to back off on it. So I'm going to add a layer mask to this, hit the G key for gradient, make sure that I'm on foreground to transparent, which is the second one over from the left, and let me make sure I hit the X key so there's black as my means of reducing that. Now, if I started from here and worked my way down by holding the Shift key, that would be all gone. So what I want to do is start way up here and only go down to about here, and I can still see the sky in there. It's actually perfect. I can still see the sky, and now I have the effect that I want. I think that looks pretty cool. Okay, let me Command Z back. Command Z. Let me Command S to save, and let me go look and pretend I'm looking at my thumbnail right now. Okay, so what I want now is the words liquid power to come off of his head. All right, so let's go Command tilde fourth to this, and let's have liquid power come off of that side. So what I'm going to do is go to my text file, and we are going to go grab the words liquid power unformatted. Command C. Now, I want it to be in ATC Tradewinds. So I'm going to hit the T key. I'm just going to go in here like this and just click and hit Command V to paste. Now, I need to move that up to the top so I can see it, and then I want it to be clicked with the V key or the Move tool. Now I'm going to bring up the character palette, and I'll let myself decide what is the right size visually. So I'm going to go like this to this one right here. Now I'm going to open up the kerning or the spacing between the letters quite significantly to about 500. Let me go down on the size to about 32 points. Now I'm going to hit the V key and move this over, and then I want to go down to about 400 until I get a nice feel both on the margin over here. So I'm going to actually put a guide in right here for a 1/2 inch guide on this side. I want the L to go over here. I now, because it's on left hand flush, I now can just drag on the VA here until it gets to be about right, which is about right there. It's at 320, and I think that looks good. Okay, now I want the color to be white. Okay, now I want to use the same drop shadow that I used on the background on the lettering. So I might have to adjust it, but I'm going to hold Alt or Option, drag the drop shadow up to there, and you can see how that really helped the readability of the word liquid power. Look without the drop shadow, look with the drop shadow. Now let's double click the drop shadow and have the distance not be so far away from it. I'm going to resize it back down to about here. That looks really cool. Now, I want to motion blur the same word. So you can see for a second. Okay, oh, you know what I did on the other one? Now I remember what I wanted. I wanted liquid power on the second line, and I wanted the text to be slightly bigger. So I'm going to take the T key, and I am going to do what I said. I'm going to go like this, and I'm going to back off on this and hit Shift Return. Now I'm going to open up the kerning, the tracking, to about, I have to actually click to the Move tool, and I'm going to just move this to where it looks good, right about there. Now you remember how I wanted it at 600? I'm going to put it back at 600 because I'm designing. Okay, now I can actually go up, whoops, I can go up with the size of the text, and I wanted it to do exactly what I wanted it to do. Let's go a little bit more, and that looks really good. Okay, I'm going to go to my thumbnail and see my thumbnail, and I want a little bit more fluidity. I want a little bit more separation in the line. So you see how my leading is right there. Let's go forward and let's now do the leading a little bit more. So let me go to about 50 points on the leading, and that looks good. Maybe even 52 points. Okay, now let me hit Command S to save the file. Now I'm back where I want it to be, but now I want to actually put some motion blur on the lettering. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm never going to get rid of the fact that this is a font layer, but I am going to duplicate it. On the duplicate one, I'm going to turn off the top one, or I'll put the duplicate one on the bottom. And I'll turn off the top one, turn back on this one, rid myself of the drop shadow because I don't want it on there. Now over here in the gray area, I want this to become pixels. So I'm going to right hand click and I'm going to rasterize the text. Now it's no longer text. Now I need to go to filter, blur, motion blur all the way down here, and I'm going to take that motion blur on a flat angle of 0, and it's fine at 160. Maybe I'll go back down to 150 or so and click OK. Now I'll turn on the upper layer and I'll take the V key and move this one over so it has a little bit more liquid movement to from left to right, and hit Command S to save. Make sure your auto select is not on, because if it's auto select is on, it'll grab the highest layer. Okay, just telling you. So it hasn't taken very long to get my add feel that I want, but now I want to go grab the body text and have a drop cap inside of it. So I go back to the text tool. I did want, and this is kind of how you will do it. It's kind of experimentation, but I'm going to go forward to Command tilde and show you another error that I had. It was the rectangle that I wanted to go about 1/2 inch around the edge. And I'll show you how to do that. I'm just going to use a stroke, and I'm going to put the stroke in white and then add a layer mask to it. Okay, it's very simple, but that means that liquid power should move over farther. Okay, so I'm going to put a guide. I'm going to put a guide from the top down to the bottom right here, and it's going to be a visual evenness from the left side to the bottom. Let's go with a new guide over here to the right hand side, and you could do it mathematically by looking up here at the rulers, or you could do it visually. I'm good enough visually to do it, so I'm going to do it visually. Let me double click the character palette so I can have it up. So what I wanted to do was now to have an inside left hand align for my L and P on liquid power. That means I'm going to have to go down in size with the liquid power, and then I'm going to have to rescale this one, okay, the one underneath. Either I rescale it or I redo it. So I click up to liquid power, I hit the V key, and I move this over, and I'll let it align itself with that right there. But now the D, actually I don't mind the D, and I don't mind where the R is, and I don't mind how the D is over his hair. That was actually an accident that I think is kind of cool. I actually like that. I really do. So I'm going to leave it. And that's a cool thing to tell you, where accidents sometimes make great design elements. So let me turn on the liquid power underneath, and I'm going to hit Command semicolon to temporarily turn off the guides, and I'm going to hold the Shift key and move this over so that liquid power actually has a little bit of vignetting on both sides, so it feels like it's adding to the motion. Okay, now I'm going to hit Command semicolon again, and I'm going to hit Command S to save, because I now want to put in my rectangle all the way around before I do the body copy. Should have done that first, but it's okay. So now I'm going to add a marquee. All right, so I'm going to take my M key, and I'm going to click right on this guide and go all the way down across to here, and I'm going to put a 10 pixel width stroke of white all the way around. So I'm going to make a new layer, and I'm going to put it lower than the text but higher than the other images. So I'm going to now call this stroke, and Command S to save the file. So I'm going to make the foreground color be white because I want it white, because when I go to edit stroke, stroke uses the foreground color. So it's 10 pixels from the center of white, boom, and now I have it. Okay, so I deselect, I remove some opacity, and I'm going to add a layer mask. I'll remove it to about 55%. And I'm going to add a layer mask later so I can eliminate some of that stroke. Now this is what it looks like so far. I'll command semicolon that, and you can see how I have a decent feel to my whole ad, but I don't want this upper part of the stroke at all. So this is what I want to do. I want to hit the G key, go back to foreground to transparent so you can see how I'm in foreground to transparent, and on the layer mask for the stroke, watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to zoom in so you can see it. I'm going to click right there, hold the shift key and work my way down, and now I've vignetted that stroke out to nothing on the top. It just ghosts or phantoms itself away, and I hit Command S to save the file. Now I can actually add either ragged text around his arm here or left hand flush text to align. I'll put my alignment back on. So let's go to the text application. Let's put it on my screen. Let me grab the body text, Command C. Let's click over here and let's click and let me zoom in and let me make sure the body text, the reason why it went in, the reason why my headline went in as Tradewinds, because Tradewinds was the last thing I ever did on this machine. So when you make your body text here, and let me make sure I'm going to put this up on the screen like this. Okay, I'm going to hit the T key and drag a text box. I don't care where it is, I just care that there is a text box there. All right, now I'm going to hit Command V to paste, and I have my words inside, but I want to reformat them. So I click Command A to select all, or I can click to the Move tool and let the Move tool do it. Okay, so I don't have to select the whole text. So I want to put this back at 50 on the tracking. I now want to go make the point size about 12. And the leading on auto for now. Okay, so there is my first formatted text. Let me go to see my, I'm calling it my storyboard or my thumbnail, but I want to see how I put it on the bottom and I have a drop shadow on it. So look what I did. I want a drop shadow, I want it to have more leading in there, and I want a drop cap. So let's go forward and put this down here on the bottom. So I'm going to drag a guide about the same distance up that one was. Let's put this on the bottom here. Let's increase the leading so it goes a little bit bigger, about that much. Let's make sure that this is a horrible text rag, horrible line rag. Okay, so this is where I have to, I'm going to go back to Command tilde so I can see where I broke the line. So I want the period to start a new sentence, and then with and push your buttons. And notice there's two words that end up here. There's no widow on the bottom. So I'm going to go to back to my ad, sorry, and let's go in and let's hit the T key, and now let's hit Shift Return. So I'm going to hit the Delete key and then Shift Return here. Now I can go back to the Move tool, take this a little bit bigger. I'm going to go to 20 points on the leading. I'm going to drag the drop shadow from liquid power down to take control. So I'm holding the Option key as I do it. All right, now I want to double click this, and I don't want that drop shadow to be as far feathered or sized out. I want it to be a little bit more contained, and I don't want the distance at 13. I want it to come a little closer to the lettering at about 5. Now that looks really pretty. Okay, so I want the point size to get bigger. So right now it's at 12. Let's try it at 14. That looks good. I think that looks fine. Now let's go into the T of take control. I want that to be bigger, so I'll go up to about 20 points on that. And I'm going to make it his, I'm going a little higher. I'll go to 22 points. I'm going to click the color of it and make it the blue on his shirt right there. but the brighter blue. Okay, that looks really neat. I like that. And then I'm going to do two things. I need to take that letter and move it closer. I need the AKE to move closer to it, but I want this to move, let me zoom in. I want the T to move down the baseline. I have to have it selected like this in order to do a part of a text box. So I'm going to drag the baseline and make it go a little bit lower, not too much, right about there. Click my cursor between the T and the A, go Option left bracket, and you can, not left bracket, left arrow. Sorry. Left arrow takes it closer, right arrow makes it farther away. So I'm holding Alt or Option and I'm giving it a visual feel. And I think that looks good. Okay, so Command S to save the file. Now before I put the logo in there and I finish with this, I want to do the same thing with this text box, but I want to actually rag it around his arm going this way. So I want to show you how to do that. Okay, let's see how well we can do that. So I'm going to double click this and go Command C, and now I'm going to turn this off. Okay, now I'm going to take the pen tool, and in the pen tool I'm going to start my click here, go real close to his arm holding the Shift key. Now I'm going to draw around his arm with the pen tool right down to that guide right here. Now I'm going to go back over to here and hold the Shift key, and then I'm going to make sure this is actually straight. Just because I'm holding the Shift key doesn't mean that one was straight. It just means that I have to go back and make, whoops, I need to lock my guides, and then I need to take the pen tool and hold the Command or Control key to zoom into that line. Now I'm going to use the cursor keys to move that over and make sure that's a vertical line. Okay, now remember I already had it in, I'm going to turn off this bottom so you can see what I'm doing. Look at how the text tool changes to outside the line, on the line, or in the box. So I click inside and hit Command V to paste. All right. The reason why it's not showing up is because the text is white. So what I need to do is to I need to turn on the picture, and now I need to go in and reformat the text to right hand flush. But before I do that, I have to make sure there's no you remember I hit the return key, so I'm going to hit the delete key and let that go to that line. Then I'm going to add a little bit of a space between the fun and the word and I'm going to close it down by going Option left arrow, because I need an actual space there, and I want to actually hit delete and delete and then put a space in there. Now that I've got this working correctly, okay, I can actually drag that drop shadow. Look at how I'm dragging it from this layer. Look, holding the Option key and dragging it on here. Okay. Now, with you selected on the Move tool, I can click right hand flush. Now, I want to make sure, even though the punctuation isn't supposed to be hanging, that on both of them I've turned hanging punctuation on. So let me turn this off and turn this back on. With that selected, I'm going to go to the paragraph menu. With me in the Move tool and with this layer selected, let's turn on hanging punctuation. Even though nothing happened, it's going to in a few minutes. Okay, you're going to see it because I'm going to have right hand flush text over to the right hand side of this ad. So let me turn this off, let me turn this on, let me click here. Let me now go back again in the paragraph menu and turn on Roman hanging punctuation. Now I want you, I'm going to Command Z, first I'm going to turn it off. Look at how this now moves over to the left. When I turn it on, it moves correctly over to the right. So the punctuation, even in a custom path, actually ragged around that. Now that's another way to do the text. Now I could obviously take the V key and move over and actually give myself a little bit more room here. Now what I want to do is take this text again, click Command A to select all, Command C to copy, click and turn it off. Now I want to drag a new text box over here, and I want to make this completely right hand flush just to see how that looks. All right, so I'm going to hit Command V to paste. Again, I'm going to hold the Alt or Option key and drag the drop shadow in there. Now let's move up here. Look at how, if I take the Move tool, you have to be in the Move tool, and now move this over. I'm going to zoom in. Look at how the period is actually hanging outside this margin. Watch how I'll take a new guide and hover it right there. See how that's hanging outside? Now watch if I turn off Roman hanging punctuation. See how it's hanging inside? That's not good. So let's go to Roman hanging punctuation if that's what I wanted to do with this text. And of course, I'm not sure that's what I want to do, but I'm going to take the Move tool and I'm going to maybe move this up a little bit, and that might be where I want my text. So far I've given you a left-hand text over here that rags around his arm. I've given you a set of body text over here on the bottom. And I've given you body text over on the other side, which is right there. I'm going to hit Command S to save, because I am going to keep this one right there. And I actually might make it slightly bigger, okay? So I'm going to make sure the text box is big enough. So I'm going to drag it over and make sure it's wide enough. Now I'm going to go back to the Move tool and make the text slightly bigger. So let's just go like this, and let's go to drag it. Let me start with 16, and that's too big. Let me go down to 15. Okay, that looks really good, and I think I'll open up the leading by 22, and that looks good. Now I have to move the text up a little bit, and now I have to redo the drop cap because the drop cap went down to the bad size. So let me take the T key, Marquee, just the drop cap. Look at the drop cap. Now let's make the drop cap go bigger again. I'll make it go up to about that much, which is 24. And now the drop cap looks better. Okay, there we go. So that looks fine. Now let me put this on the screen and let's go do the logo. Okay, so the logo needs to be put in place. So open up your logo in Photoshop like I did. Here's my logo. Right-hand click on that layer and duplicate that layer to your ad. Now, go forward to your ad by going Command tilde, which is the key above the Tab key. So let me go backwards and let's see where the logo went. So let me go to the Move tool and move this over, and that's actually the finished one. So let's go to one more, and now there is the big logo. Now I'm going to place that logo by just grabbing it with the Move tool over on this side. I'm going to make a piece of art out of this logo. I'm going to use it as my template. So I'm going to put a layer either above or below this art. I'll throw this away or turn this off in a minute, okay? But I'm going to call this logo. Good. Whoops, that's not how you spell logo, Brian. And I'm almost done. So now I'm clicking to the logo layer. Do you see how I'm on it? I'm hitting the W key for the magic wand. If you're on the quick selection tool, right-hand click up here and go to the magic wand. Please put your tolerance at 12 or so. The default is 32. And uncheck contiguous. With contiguous on, and if I clicked where the black is, then only this black would be selected. But with contiguous off, it looks for all the black in that layer. You understand what I'm saying? So now let's turn off this, click to your logo layer, and I'm going to fill it with white because I want a white logo and I want it to be transparent. The same drop shadow that I put on the text, I'm going to Option or Alt drag. Look at how I'm Option dragging it to here, and now I have a nice drop shadow. Now I'm going to hit Command T to transform the logo. So I'm holding the Shift key. You have to hold the Shift key. Some of you do not hold the Shift key and you distort the actual piece of art. So now let me just put this in place right over here. Hit the Return key. I'm going to find out what transparency, so I'm hitting the V key. I want you to see something cool. I'm going to hit Command semicolon to turn off the guides for the moment. I want to instantly see what opacity. So Well, let me tell you what I'm doing. In the Move tool, right-hand click over the layer, and it'll go right to that layer, which was down here, and it's at a 55% opacity. So I'm going to right-hand click now over the logo. It goes to the logo layer. Let's immediately put that at 55%. Now it's the same, right? Now I can see the water through the logo. Now, let us go back to the layer mask for the stroke. Now I'm going to do a quick pen tool, okay, because I feel it's more accurate. Now what I really want, though, is a circle-y thing to remove the rest of this, and so many ways I can do this. I could draw a quick pen tool to simulate a nice curve around that. See how I've done that on this side? Okay, I could use a circular marquee and do it. I'm just going to click and look at how quickly I can create a custom nice little path. I'll move it up like this to chop. I don't want this chopped off straight. I want it to be chopped off at an angle. So now I'm just going to go around this, and around this. And I'm not cutting anything off of the logo. I'm cutting it off of the stroke. Do you understand? So look at over here in the path palette. I'm going to double click it. So I make it a path. So when I save the file, it's still there. Command click it. Now look, I'm clicking on the layer mask and I'm going to fill it. Option delete with black. Boom. I now have it cut off in a really cool way. And there is my file. Now I'm going to show you how to save as to the PDF. So I started with a picture and I turned it into an ad. So I hit Command S to save. Now, right at this point, you could begin your second ad. All you would have to do to begin the second ad is go to File and Save As and change the 1 to a number 2. If you did that, and pretend I did that now, pretend I did that and I had 2 of them. Okay, so I would hit save, but I'm going to hit cancel, but pretend I hit saved. All you would have to do if you wanted to is change the words, change the headline. So maybe this next one doesn't say liquid power, it says something else. Then you would have to redo the blur behind it, but the logo is already in place, the rectangle is already there, and all you've got to do is change the picture. Isn't that kind of cool? I mean, the second ad won't take you very long. Now, let's pretend you've done the second and the third ads. Open them back up with all their layers. Do you see over here? All the layers. Good. Move all the text layers to the top. Even though those text layers don't have anything in them, I'm moving it. Well, they do. I just don't want them to show. I'm moving them to the top. I am now going to move the one down here to the top. So all the text layers are on top. It's very important that you don't damage this file. So for temporary purposes, I'm going to hit Command-Shift-S to go to Save As, and I'm going to add the word merged to this. This is the one that I'll automatically know that I have merged my image layers. Okay, so here's the process. I'm going to bring the layer palette over and I'm going to go as slow as I can. Click on the first image layer. Make sure you have no text in here and shift click on the last image layer. Got it? Command E to merge them. Make sure all you have is one image layer and all text layers. Okay. Since this is named, look at, I'm double checking, since this is named my merged file, I can hit Command S to save. Now if you do that on the layered file, you're not going to be able to go back and make any changes. So please don't do this to the layered file. Thank you. Now go to Save As. Change it into a PDF file. I'm going to take away the word merged. Now I'm going to hit Save. In this window, you must, if you want this less than 5 megabytes, to turn off Preserve Photoshop editing capability. Did you hear me? Turn it off. Now to triple check on your machines at home, click Compression and make sure everything is at 300 ppi, JPEG maximum, and that you can leave the 450 fine. But if this is at 72 ppi, make that at 300 ppi. But now I'm happy. I click Save. Now, I am going to minimize Photoshop. So I'm going to check the PDF. So I'm going to hit the F key once, the F key again, and minimize Photoshop. Good. Here is my first ad. I'll show you that it's the one, and I'm triple checking myself that it's the one that I made. Now I would like you to see, look at this, that this is my PSD file. Look at how many megabytes it was, 55 megabytes. Look at how the PDF is only 3.1 megabytes. Why? Because I turned off retain Photoshop or preserve Photoshop editing capability. Turned it off. I double click this. I'll bring over from my other screen, if I can get to it. Hold on. I'll bring this over from my other screen to check my ad. I'm going to zoom in and see if that is indeed vector, which it is. See how nice it is. Now I'm going to see if this is vector. You better check yours, because I will check yours. Look at how nice and vector that is. Okay? And you are good to turn this in when I say and where I say to turn it in. So that is a good movie on how to start with your first image and then end up with your final PDF to turn in and have the text be vector. Okay? Hope you enjoyed it. Take care.